In the year 2047, 25 years have passed since interdimensional gates to hell opened all around the world. The world has changed a lot and the humanity is gone, except for one person, Nambung. This individual fought for his dream, not eating or drinking for a full 25 years, and his mission was to collect 666,666 demon skulls. Today, Nambung has finally collected the last skull, completing the legendary hidden quest. He now has a chance to go back to the past. Nambung's unwavering dedication to the past is driven by one reason. He longs to see his late daughter again, to hold her and hear her voice in their home. He also aims to prevent the Earth from becoming the way it is now. For 25 years, Namgung has been fighting demons and gathering their skulls. It's been a tough and challenging journey, with countless obstacles and unimaginable challenges, but he managed to succeed. The last demon before its death said they would meet again, but the man didn't want to listen. He believed in his dream and waited to see his daughter. After a long and tough journey, he returned to the past, guided by a radiant golden light. Namgung comes to his senses and realizes he has traveled back in time. Without hesitation, he rushes into his daughter's room, eager to see her alive again. As he gazes upon his peacefully sleeping daughter, his emotions overwhelm him. In the years when the gates of hell have unleashed countless monsters into the human world, he has fought to protect his daughter, but he can't hold on. Unfortunately, his daughter has become a victim of those creatures that have taken over the world. This moment etches an indelible memory in his life, and he can never forgive himself for losing his beloved daughter. After reliving his memories, Nambung exits the room. At that instant, the emotions he had suppressed for so long finally erupt. Nevertheless, he is acutely aware that this fleeting happiness will be short-lived. The world still faces the looming threat of demon invasion, and his ultimate mission is yet to be completed. Namgung understands that there will come a time when the gates of hell will open and the world will cease to exist if nothing changes. He doubts his abilities to protect Sue and survive at the very gates of hell simultaneously, but he shouldn't doubt himself like that. He needs to figure out how to save the Earth and his beloved daughter. He's been given another chance and must make the most of it. Even if he has to sacrifice his life, he will never let the shadows of darkness overcome the light that resides in the hearts of those he loves. Meanwhile, Nambung realizes that he has gained magical powers, mastered the art of summoning, and opened the eye of the soul. He looks at the energy slowly gathering in his palm. Has his return not stripped him of his magic? At this very moment, he senses the presence of an unseen observer, a silent witness to his existence. As he gazes upon a photograph of his beloved wife and daughter, a thought takes root in his mind. Could it be his wife, Sua? Although he doesn't understand why his magic hasn't disappeared, perhaps it's a privilege of those who have returned. He comprehends that there's very little time remaining before the events will unfurl once more. Only 3 days remain until October 11th, when the gates of hell will manifest themselves. Nevertheless, there were those who had become aware of their existence 3 days prior to the impending catastrophe. 8 chosen prophets, warriors who would emerge as humanity's saviors, possessed abilities that developed much faster than ordinary people. If Manbang uses the experience he's accumulated over the past 25 years, he can gain an advantage in many resources. On October 8th, 3 days before the impending catastrophe, Nambung ventures into a store with an eerie ambience at its entrance. Descending into the depths, he finds himself in an underground warehouse. Following the store's directions, he arrives at a specific location. However, something unsettles him. Something feels off, and he realizes there shouldn't be anyone here. Everything appears different from what he had anticipated. As he explores further, he spots a man seated patiently, awaiting his arrival. Nambung informs him that he has come to purchase items and addresses him as Yaksha. In the next moment, a colossal hand hurtles towards Namgung and a formidable force pins him against the wall, rendering him utterly immobile. He struggles to grasp what's happening, as everything seems shrouded in mist, making it difficult to discern. As the mist begins to dissipate, a monstrous figure materializes before him. This entity inquires about his identity and the purpose of his presence. The monster appears truly menacing with its large fangs and a single glowing eye. Nambung utters quietly that he had heard that chosen ones were selected here. However, Yaksha appears bewildered, wondering if someone was instructed to come here. He had believed that the selection process was still ongoing. Nambung responds that this is precisely why he had come here, as he wanted to claim their position before the selection process concluded. He needed to secure a spot among the chosen 8 to have the opportunity to defend the land and his daughter. The monster finds it amusing that Nambung, a mortal, has come to save the world. After a moment, Yaksha's expression changes, and he remembers something. He then changes his tone and tells Nambung that his actions have caught his attention. He questions if Nambung is the one who has defeated over 666,666 high-ranking demons. Yaksha acknowledges that they know more than Nambung might think and emphasizes that altering time won't change anything, as this place is influenced by higher powers. He claims that now Nambyung is trapped, and if he ruins everything, their wrath will be terrible. At that moment, 3 daggers fly towards Yaksha, piercing his hand. Nambyung claims that they could have completely deprived Yaksha of his arm, but it seems he needs to acclimate to his new body for battling demons effectively. Furthermore, he lacks certain runes and capabilities to attain the powers he desires. Yaksha tells Nambyung that this place was created by higher forces, and interfering with their plan would greatly anger them. Nambyung responds confidently, stating that if these higher powers allowed him to return, they must be indifferent to what transpires here. His calmness and assurance further fuel the demon's rage, and it attempts to strike him with a massive hand. However, Nambyung, with a single powerful strike of his hand, halts the demon's attack, asserting his dominance and calming his anger. He informs Yaksha that he returned for a reason, having already fulfilled his mission by destroying over 666,666 demons. Seeing this, Yaksha is filled with fear. As a result, his powers begin to wane. The massive demon, once appearing invincible, transforms into a harmless spirit. This was precisely what Nambyung had sought to achieve. Realizing that Yaksha is no longer a threat and has become a harmless being, Nambyung shares 2 important things that Yaksha needs to know. First, until the gates of hell open, representatives of races cannot harm humans. It's one of the rules. Second, he reveals the reason he came here was to meet a Yaksha for his bundle. Then he warns Yaksha not to even think about killing when the gates of hell open, and addresses him as a second-class Yaksha, Jiryu, who gets astonished at this and inquires how he knows his real name. Nambyung reveals that it is because they are a perfect match, implying that he has been Yaksha's master. His gaze becomes even more piercing, and Jiryu is so scared that he can't utter a word. Nambyung activates the prophet's shop to choose the necessary items for himself. The next moment, numerous windows appear before him. As he suspected, his shop was indeed meant for the chosen ones. The shop has many rare items, but their prices are astronomical. If he considers that he receives 1 head for each monster he kills, he will never be able to buy anything here. However, his attention is drawn to one particular item. He realizes that he needs to obtain it by any means necessary because he doesn't have time to collect demon heads. He looks at Jiryu and impulsively asks him to kindly gift him that item, even though he's aware that such items are usually purchased by collecting the required number of demon heads. This request greatly surprises the demon and leaves it bewildered, as it had never heard of anything like it before. To obtain this item, one needed to reach a specific level of friendliness. Jiryu argues that first Nambyung struck his hand with knives and then slapped him. How can he demand that Jiryu gifts him the scroll after such behavior? Nambyung pulls the dagger out of Jiryu's hand and then offers him 20 million, a significant sum of money for such an item. However, Jiryu shows no interest, understanding that while it might be significant now, in 3 days it would be worthless pieces of paper. Nambyung insists that Jiryu takes the money and explains that in 2 years it would save his life when the dark night falls. This leaves the demon puzzled, as it doesn't understand what the man is trying to convey. Nambyung persistently tries to convince Jiryu, stating that he knows money will always be valuable even after the gates of hell are opened. Jiryu isn't sure if he's telling the truth or not, but the thought of making the wrong choice angers him. Nambyung adds that it's Jiryu's choice whether to heed the advice or not, but in 2 years he will deeply regret not having listened. Understanding that he might make a regrettable mistake, Jiryu hands over the scrolls and asks Nambyung what he will do with them. Not hearing a response, Jiryu turns away, bows his head in sadness, and begins to walk away, weighed down by the uncertainty of his choice. In that moment, Nambyung unfurls the scroll, fully aware of why he has acquired it and how to make use of its contents. Using the scroll in the next second, the space around him suddenly begins to shift, crackling into fine particles. He seems to know what he is doing, and his goal is to meet the main villain. Following the teleportation, a potent presence envelops him as though an imperceptible energy enshrouds the essence of his very being. He beholds a colossal red eye that has fixed its gaze upon him, observing his every move. It appears as if he has been here before and feels a sense of confidence, although the surroundings appear ominous. After 25 years of demon hunting, he has become accustomed to such places. Without wasting any time, Nambyung proceeds down the long road. Behind him, Jiryu follows. He's familiar with this place and curious about how this journey will conclude and how swiftly Nambyung will be deprived of life. Jiryu is also keen to discover the answer to one question. Realizing that Nambyung knows about the 8 chosen prophets and now seeks to wrest their privileges away from them, he wonders what Nambyung intends to do with the prophet who will arrive here and refuse to yield his privilege to him. He chooses not to respond to this question, but it's evident that it doesn't trouble him in the slightest. Later, the chosen prophet, a ghost whale named Choi Kwisu, is introduced, an enormous, invincible entity, one of the 8 martial stars. He commands legions of the undead and is practically immortal. He was on par with the strongest of the 8 martial stars, Alec. However, in the eyes of people, he appears as a man with whom no one wants to deal, for he is a psychopath. To harness the power of the undead, he requires corpses, and Choi Hwee-soo conducts experiments to create the perfect cadaver for his army. Ju-ryu reveals that Choi did the same to him as well. In response, Nambyung simply states that he doesn't feel sorry at all. Ju-ryu finds his behavior cold, and while walking down this eerie road, he incessantly emphasizes the need for caution. Upon entering the territory of the Tamer of the Seven Serpents, they hear a horrifying voice proclaiming that they have not been granted permission to enter. The voice questions Ju-ryu about why he has brought a man into his realm, stating that only the prophet he had chosen is allowed to enter, and Nambyung is just an ordinary man. Nambyung conveys to the owner of the Seven Serpents that not choosing him was his greatest mistake, and he should have done it sooner. Ju-ryu also added that this was the individual who had managed to slay 666,666 demons and return to the past. This troubled the Tamer of Seven Snakes greatly. He had longed to encounter the one who had disrupted the rules of the game, but he was convinced that this man lacked the skill to replace the prophet he had chosen. Nambyung, incensed by these remarks, claims that he is better than Choi Hwee-soo, the one guy they had selected. In response, he decides to showcase his abilities. He leaps upwards, reaching the eye, and with an insane force, strikes it. Ju-ryu observed this in disbelief, unable to trust his own eyes, as attacking such a mighty ghost was a reckless notion. The Tamer of Seven Snakes, realizing that the man before him was no ordinary person, asked where he had acquired such power. This question hinted to Nambyung that despite being a higher being, he did not possess complete knowledge. Nambyung responded that his strength had granted him the ability to return to the past and navigate numerous intricate situations. He also added that this power had been bestowed upon him by the prophet he would choose. This information piqued the Tamer's interest, and he revealed his true form. It was the master of the Seven Serpents who expressed his surprise that Nambyung had passed the trial and slain 666,666 demons. However, he informed Nambyung that he was late because the 8 prophets had already been chosen. The man states that he is the sole survivor and has never served the master of the Seven Serpents. All those whom he had chosen as prophets have perished, leaving only him. He has come not to beg for the position of a prophet, but to offer a chance. However, if the master of the Seven Serpents does not select him, it will be his mistake and will bring victory to another higher being. The one chosen as the prophet will be the first to meet his demise. These words resonate like a chilling omen. Such threats anger the master of the Seven Serpents, and he is ready to extinguish him in that very moment. Somewhat calming down, he inquires why he should choose him. Nambyung, though ready to depart, responds that if he chooses him, it will help him win this game. He explains that when he was unaware of the gates of hell about to be opened again, he had managed to defeat everyone and return to the past. Now with his abilities and knowledge, he is certain he can replicate that success. These arguments please the master of the Seven Serpents, and he changes his decision, selecting him as the prophet. He then teleports Choi Hwee-soo there, who is surprised to be there. However, the master of the Seven Serpents instantly kills him and states that he'll change the prophets.